Hey everyone, I'm Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central, and I'm here with director Jennifer Reeder, director of the new film Night's End, which is coming to Shudder on March 31st. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm so good. So, okay, you've done Knives and Skin, which is one of my favorite one of my favorite movies of recent years. You did, and then after that, you did the VHS frame narrative, and now you have Night's End. And they're all very different movies, which is awesome to see kind of the range. And so, what was it like going from something like Knives and Skin and VHS 94 to Night's End?
A very different sort of group of years than I had experienced, because when I made Knives and Skin, I mean, Knives and Skin was kind of the mothership to so many of the short films I made leading up to it. So I was like
Yeah.
really familiar with that world.
Okay.
And then, pivoting to VHS 94, which was my first, found footage project.
Yeah.
And coming to that project when it had already, it was like a train that had already left the station. Actually got involved pretty late in the process. Two or three of the shorts were already done. David Bruckner stepped off to do Hellraiser, and they, brought me in. So that was also a different, even just not even in the scope of my films. If I had done other found footage project, that was one that even just coming to that project as late as I did felt like, oh, I got to pivot pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But still, I was still honestly super thankful for the to be able to make something in 2021, to be able to shoot something in 2021.
Yeah.
And and I like so much the other directors, and I wanted to do something that felt kind of conventionally and commercially, genre or horror, to sort of say like that, I mean, Knives and Skin obviously has, some super fans who love it for all of its weirdness, but, there's still people who are like, WTF did I just watch? It's sort of a thing. And so, or it's just maybe sort of like too experimental in its experimental moments,
Yeah.
So, it felt like a good move to, to take on something that still felt like in the kind of holy hell story that there was this, a kind of lady-led cult idea that still comes from my own general, world of things I like to think about as a filmmaker, but also just a different kind of production, and knowing that it had to, especially with the wraparound, knowing that it had to, that it was going to be, interspersed between these other shorts. And then pivoting to Night's End, which, I got back from, we shot VHS in Toronto, and I got back from Toronto, and we maybe 4 weeks later shot Night's End. So it was a really pretty fast turnaround. I mean, I was prepping for it remotely, anyway. So, and I knew it was happening, but it was also it was a quick turnaround for that project. And, what drew me to Night's End had a lot to do with, and it was written by Brett Neveu, who's a Chicago-based playwright. And he and I have been trying to work together for a while, but I liked the idea of taking on a story that was about an adult man. And, I had also, that's not something I've ever done. I had been looking for a story like that. I've been looking for a story about where an adult male lead, where I could kind of see him through a lens of tenderness, and where I could, where he was also, kind of coping with trauma, which is for sure what I've sent my adolescent girls through. There was still a kind of a gauntlet, and I think that I mean, and there's a kind of a gauntlet in VHS 94 too. So what sort of holds all of those together is a kind of, sending my characters through super dark times, and figuring out do they come out better or worse, in the end. And I think with Night's End, I was still, and actually VHS, I was able to, I loved the production design in VHS. I was able to really find a really peculiar warehouse to shoot in.
Yeah.
And then, which is also, I mean, Knives and Skin is jammed with, production design. And the same thing, I mean, even though we were shooting in one location for Night's End, even just the addition of the kind of clear plastic, with the windows, or the orchid room, or
The
Ken's
soup cans,
taxidermy bird.
the kitchen. I was obsessed with that kitchen. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
why, but like the way you had all the cans of soup and the way everything was so regimented in the
Mhm.
kitchen, it was so like this. It seems like not simple, but like pared down production design, but so good though. It really gives you that sense of like paranoia on the plastic sheets over the
Mhm.
doors. Felt like Bug. Have you seen Bug?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It
Mhm.
gave me Bug vibes when I was watching it a little bit as things
Mhm.
started going to hell too with the plastic.
Right.
I
Yeah,
definitely.
because I knew that I knew from the get-go that I wanted, that in that opening shot we move into Ken's apartment, and then I knew
Yeah.
that I didn't want to leave his apartment until the end.
Yeah.
So, in 80 minutes, you sort of have to figure out like how you can optimize, a very few rooms. And when we were shooting in that location, it was also the production, so we had, when we weren't shooting in the orchid room, that was where hair and makeup was. And then we would
Oh,
move that to Ken's office while we were
yeah.
shooting it or whatever. So kind of just outside the frame was like the guy doing DIT, or the hair and makeup, or like the crafty table. I mean, it was
So you
like,
were like very much single location. Like when we say single location, like everything was in this one place.
yes, absolutely. And even though like Chicago is really hot in July, so it was like that was uncomfortable. I mean, thankfully, we had a whole yard to sort of like deal with, in a garage. So, it felt like very kind of communal. Like we would all go into the backyard and eat lunch together, and then kind of
Yeah.
go back into this house that was the house, or the apartment itself was kind of constantly tented. So we could control all the lights in that apartment.
Oh,
But
okay.
it really meant that like when you went in there at 8 o'clock in the morning and shut the door, it looked like it was midnight.
Oh,
So there was it was really
God.
disorienting, you know?
So that sounds like the pandemic. Just like that
Exactly.
whole experience.
Yeah. I mean, there was something that was very, very, we all sort of for that 13 days became shut-ins, ourselves.
And so I am curious because this is very much like a pandemic vibe movie. Did you conceive of the story during the pandemic or beforehand? And it just so happened to unfortunately coincide with the global pandemic.
Yeah, Brett, I think he started out, he wrote a short script. And I think it was, he had written something that he wanted to make with his daughter, or that his daughter could be like the ghost girl or something like this.
Okay.
And I think that I think they wrote it in, they wrote it during the pandemic because they were home alone. They were home together,
Yeah.
and they were like, let's do something together. So it sort of started out like that, like a kind of an exercise, two people who were both, home alone, and,
Okay.
trying to do something, trying to make something creatively together. And then I guess, as kind of teenage girls will do, she abandoned him, she abandoned the project. She was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like the next week he was like, okay, let's have a meeting about our script. And she was like, I'm on to something else. So he continued to write it, made it into a feature, length. And he comes from the playwright world, so it was all dialogue when I got it. He sent it to me, and I was like,
Um,
"Wow, this is all dialogue. We have to make Ken do something. He's living by himself, but he's
yeah.
got to do some stuff." And I liked, in addition to making something about an adult male, it also felt like, okay, the scope of the project felt like we could do this during the pandemic, because even last summer, in a city like Chicago with surges, the COVID
Yeah.
restrictions were still really tight. And dealing with like SAG protocol, we weren't, you can't go around that. We really
Yeah.
were not. It was, we did it legitimately, which also meant trying to slow down and do things the right way, which meant, that we actually shot every actor by themselves. So we never had two actors working
Okay.
together.
Um,
Except for Michael Shannon and Kate Arrington, who obviously are in the same frame. So those were the only two who were
yeah.
together, but everybody else we shot separately, dressed like just, their video conferencing background. And then, built that chemistry between characters in editing, which just feels like a miracle on some level, especially the conversations between Ken and Terry, who
Yeah.
I feel like that that from my perspective works really well, but those two guys were never on set together.
I was going to ask about that because it has that kind of like second screen horror, like not like Unfriended vibes a little bit, in a way that you like, and Host, because that intimacy established through the computer in a really good, in a really interesting way, especially with Ken and his ex-wife, and Michael Shannon's character. Like that was also a really interesting thing that developed over the like over Zoom, basically.
Right.
I am curious, Michael, like, how did you get Michael Shannon to make a little appearance? He always
He's
makes
funny.
me laugh with the way
I mean, he's funny. I think I challenge somebody to find another film where Michael Shannon is the comic relief, where Michael Shannon is like the lightest person in the film, So Kate Arrington, who plays Kelsey, who's Ken's ex-wife, is Michael Shannon's real life wife.
Okay.
And Kate Arrington is the fake pregnancy mom in Knives and Skin. So
yes.
So I have known Kate for a while. She's usually in Chicago during the summer for like a Steppenwolf theater kind of youth camp. And so I said to her, I was like, Brett and I are making this film, and I would love to have you be in it while you're here this summer. And for the COVID of it, maybe your real life husband can play your husband. And she was like, well, I'll ask him. Now, having said that, Brett Nevieux, who wrote the script, is an ensemble writer for Red Orchid Theater, which is a theater company that Michael Shannon co-founded.
Cool.
With Larry Grimm, who plays Colin the Exorcist. So we were working.
Chicago. I love
so Chicago.
So cool.
And we were really working Michael from all those angles. We were like, Brett wrote it, Larry's in it too, Kate's in it, like, come on, just be in it. So, I mean, there was some level of all of us, and especially, one of the producers, Neil Edelstein, who was like, I think we should be prepared for him not to show up on the day that he's supposed to show up. And I was like, he wouldn't do that to Kate, because Kate's definitely coming. And if he sort of didn't show up for his half a day, she's going to change the locks, So I feel like, Kate was kind of doing me a favor. And I feel like he was in this film to do Kate a favor. That's how much he loves her. That's what I'm chalking it up to. But yeah, I love he has some great, really daffy lines. And yeah, I feel like there's got to be either none or very few other films made where, where Michael Shannon is the funny guy.
Just like walking in the background in this like Hawaiian shirt, like with a coffee mug. It's just,
it's like cereal slurping.
Like slurping it up. He's like, I want to talk to her by himself. And he just, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious, have you ever had a paranormal experience?
God, now that's a good question. Not as many. I feel like I've been kind of shortchanged on my paranormal experiences. I mean, not as many
So
as
have I, and I'm really mad about it. I'm like, everyone has such cool ghost stories. I don't have one, and I'm sad.
No, I mean, I have one that happened when I first moved into the house that I am still in, and we took over the house from an older couple, either one or both of whom had died in the house, and
wow.
So my second son was an infant, and he was sleeping in the other room. I heard him fussing. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I thought, okay, I'll get out of bed in like 10 more seconds and go, put him back to sleep. And then in like 5 seconds in, or I was at like second 8 or whatever, I heard him kind of calm down. I heard like footsteps in the other room, kind of pacing back and forth. So I thought like, his dad got up and is kind of like walking him around the room, kind of back to sleep. And I turned over and his dad was still in bed with me. So then I just was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if, I don't know, like, did the ghost of Mrs. Hatskill just go and like, walk my baby back to sleep? Or I don't know. I just was like, it's notorious. Even now, Levi's a teenager, and he's just like, remember that time you thought that the ghost put me back to sleep? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know what else it was,
Did you get up to look, or were you just like, nope,
no way,
no way? Yeah.
Especially because I was like, if there's a ghost in there, I just let it be. And also I was like, the baby went back to sleep. That's all that's all I care about.
You're like, I'm not going to chance waking him up, me getting back.
Yeah. And kind of during that period of time, it was like things in the house were got moved and disappeared. But at the same time, we hadn't been in the house for very long. So sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, it was like a new house for us. Who's to say that somebody like one of us moved it and then forgot we moved it. But then I think, I feel like nothing much happened that much longer after, you know, the baby being put down. So I don't feel like my house is any longer haunted, if it was even at that point. But like, that's it. I mean, I really, ghosts, you know, good ghosts. I really don't want to be terrorized in the same way that Ken is, but I do feel like, as someone who's interested in paranormal activity, both in real life and in films, I have been shortchanged.
I have to, and I just like to hear other people's stories so I can. I'm saying this, I'm like knocking on wood, so I don't like.
Yeah, let's all do that, right?
Like horrific spirit's gonna come find me now.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us about Night's End. I'm so excited for everyone to see it, and it comes to Shudder on March 31st.
Oh, Mary Beth, I love talking to you again.